Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to lesson 33 and the third video in our advanced series on Quranic Arabic. Way back in lesson 7, we studied possession, phrases like the book of Ahmed or Ahmed's book. We studied how to say that in Arabic. And in this lesson, we're going to be building off of that and looking at some advanced rules as it relates to possessive phrases. Specifically, the three advanced rules that we'll be looking at are, first of all, what the rules are if the possessor is a verb. I'll explain that momentarily. Second, nouns, looking at three specific nouns that take long final vowels when they're the possessed object. And third, the word غير. So this is a very specific word, غير, and how it's used in possessions. Alright, so let's get started. And we'll start by reviewing the rules of possession from lesson 7. So to give a quick summary, so possessions are when we say something like Rahmatullahi, the mercy of God, or God's mercy. So in English, there's two ways to say it. You can either put the possessor first, and then apostrophe s, and then the possessed object. Or you can put the possessed first, and then put the word of, and then the possessor. In Arabic, only the second one works. So you always put the possessed object first. So Rahma, mercy, is possessed by God. So we put Rahma first, and then we put Allahi afterwards. And so that's the first rule. The second rule is that the possessed object can never have tanween or al. So it would be wrong to say ar-rahmatullahi, for example, if you're trying to say the mercy of God. And then the third rule is that the possessor must always be in the majroor case. So rahmatullahi, you see Allahi, the kasra here. This tells us it's in the majroor case. Okay, so now the interesting thing is that the possessor can also be a verb in some cases. So it's best to see that with an example. So in this case, we have the sentence ila yawmi yub'athun. So ila is just a preposition. To, or in this case, until. Yawmi, here we have the possessed, here we have the possessor. Ila yawmi yub'athun. Until the day of their raising. That's how I might translate it literally. Until the day of their raising. So their resurrection, in other words. Okay, so if I'm translating this more idiomatically, in English I would just say until the day that they are raised. Okay, so you'll notice here the possessed is it's a noun. Yawm is a noun. Now, yub'athun is a verb. Okay, specifically it's a present tense plural verb, but it's a verb. When you have this situation, just as before, you'll find that the possessed must come before the possessor. And just like before, the possessed doesn't have tanween or al. So we don't see the tanween or the al on yawm. But the third rule, that the possessor must be in the majroor case, that no longer applies, because that only applies to nouns. So otherwise, it's pretty much the same thing as before. Ila yawmi yub'athun. And we'll see more examples of this. Hina yunazzalu al-Qur'anu. So here, hina means the time when. Okay? So here it's being used as a possessed, as a mudaf. Hina yunazzalu al-Qur'an. The time when, or the time of the recitation being sent down. Okay? Of the Qur'an being revealed. The time of the Qur'an being revealed. That's kind of how you might translate this. So this here is the possessed, this is the possessor. And so that's why you see the rules that follow here. This is, it doesn't have tanween, it doesn't have al. And this comes afterwards. Let's do one more example. هذا يوم ينفع الصادقين صدقهم. So this is a more complex example. But what it's saying here is, this is the day of benefit happening to the truthful from their truthfulness. So it's a bit of a mouthful when translating this into English literally. But if we were to translate this more naturally, you might see this is the day when the truthful will actually benefit from their truthfulness. Okay. All right. So just look at these examples. Make sure you understand what's happening here. What is the possessed noun and what is the possessor verb? And again, it's not actually that this verb is possessing this noun, of course, literally, but just grammatically this is treated as a possessive phrase. Okay. Alright, we'll move on to the second topic in today's lesson, which is nouns with long final vowels. Okay, so there are three common words in the Quran that when they appear as the first part of a possessive phrase, they actually look a little bit different. Okay, and these three words are abun, which means father, akhun, which means brother, and dhu, which means the person who has something, like the owner of something. So let's take a look at an example to make it super clear. So let's say I want to say something like the father of the child. Okay, the father of the child. Well, that's a possessive phrase. So in Arabic, what I would do is I would say Abu al-waladi, right? So I take the first word, the possessed, it's the father of the child. So I take ab and I change it to Abu. And then I just put al-waladi, right? So this second word, it has the kasra like I'd expect. Now the thing is, I don't just put a dhamma on the ba as like you would normally expect. You know, if it was like, for example, the book of the child, I would say Kitabu al-waladi, right? Kitabu al-waladi. But here, for the word abun, I actually have to put a waw as well. It takes a long vowel. Abu al-waladi. Abu al-waladi. Okay? And that is if it's in the marfu'a case. If it's in the mansub case, I say Aba al-waladi. And if it's in the majroor case, I say Abi al-waladi. Abul waladi, Abal waladi, Abil waladi. Okay? Now, it turns out that this happens in possessive phrases, and it also happens if it's being attached with a pronoun. So if I want to say, for example, his father, Abuhu. Okay? Abuhu in the marfu' case, Abahu in the mansub case, and Abihi in the majroor case. Alright? And this is also the case for akhun. So akhul waladi, the brother of the child. Akhal waladi, akhil waladi. Akhuhu, akhahu, akhihi, all mean his brother. And then dhu. So if I want to say dhul waladi, the one with the child. Dhul waladi, dhal waladi, dhil waladi. Alright, and then dhu is not typically used with pronouns, so we can skip that second one. Alright, finally we'll move on to the word ghayr and how to use it. Okay, so what does ghayr mean? Ghayr means something different from or other than. So a couple of examples from the Quran here. Ghayrul Islami, other than Islam. Ghayrul Haqqi, other than the truth or anything but the truth. Ghayra Sabilil Mu'mineen. So this here is a way other than that of the believers. So other than the way of the believers. Now what you'll notice here is that this is kind of like a possession construction, because ghayr here has a it doesn't have tanween, it doesn't have al, it can change its ending, so it could be ghayra, ghayru, ghayri, and then you have al is, and then the next word always has a kasra. It's always in the majroor case. So ghayrul islami, and so on. So it acts like a possession construction. Now, it acts like a possession construction, but with one extra feature. The word after ghayr can be indefinite, right? And if it is indefinite, it actually doesn't act like a possession construction. So we'll take a look at a specific example to make this concrete, but for now, just understand the rule here. If the word after ghayr is indefinite, meaning if it doesn't have an al, if it has tanween, then the two together are treated like an adjective, so it should match with the preceding noun in gender and number. So again, let's take a look at a couple of examples. If I say ajrun ghayru mamnunin, ajrun ghayru mamnunin, here mamnoon is indefinite. Okay, there's actually a tanween here, which is a little bit hard to see, but ajrun ghayru mamnunin, this is indefinite, and so this whole phrase becomes an adjective that modifies ajrun. Okay, so ajrun means reward. Mamnoon means something that ends. So ghayru mamnoon, unending, unbroken. So ajrun ghayru mamnoonin is a reward that does not end or does not break. Ajrun ghayru mamnoonin. Alright, now this is singular because ajr is singular. So let's take a look at an example where it's not singular. Innahum ghayru malumin. So indeed they are not blameworthy. Okay, now malum means blameworthy. blameworthy. So malumin is the plural because so is innahum, because it's referring to a group of people. So غير followed by malum makes it indefinite, and then it has to match the number of people here, so it becomes innahum غير malumin. غير malumin. And the reason it's malumin instead of malumun is because it still has to be in the word malum still has to be majrur, so because it's following غير. So innahum غير malumin. Alright, so to recap, what we've said so far is that غير acts like a possession construction, except that if in the second word of the possession construction you have an indefinite word, then the whole phrase غير followed by indefinite is used as an adjective to refer to a noun or a pronoun. Okay, and so it has to match with that preceding noun or pronoun in gender and number. One other important thing about غير is that if you're negating multiple things, then you don't say غير again and again. You don't say غير this and غير that. Instead, you say غير this ولا that. Okay, so let's look at an example. غير باغ ولا عاد, not outraging nor transgressing. So we use غير for the first one, ولا for the second one, but it has similar rules, and so you can see the word after ولا still has to be in the majrur case here. بغير علم ولا هدى ولا كتاب منير. So this is 3 items that are being negated: without knowledge or guidance or an illuminating scripture. Alright, let's go ahead and finish our exercises. We'll take a few different examples looking at these different rules. So the first one, يَوْمَ خَلَقَ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ. So this is an example where this is a possession construction where you have the possessed item is a noun, the day of, and then the following words are actually the possessor. خَلَقَ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ, and this is a verbal phrase. So the day of the creation of the heavens and the earth. Okay, and just one tip for you to remember is that this happens, this structure where the verb is used as a possessor, that typically happens when with the word yawma and the word heen and other words related to time. That's when it usually happens. So if you see yawm, for example, then you can be on the lookout. Oh, maybe if there's a verb that comes after it, it's being possessed by yawm. Abuna shaykhun kabirun. Okay, so abuna. Okay, so what is this happening here? So abuna means our father, and you can see that the word ab has taken the wow because it's in the, first of all, it's in the marfu' case, and second, it has a pronoun attached to it. Abuna. Abuna shaykhun kabir. Our father is an elderly shaykh. أرسلنا موسى وأخاه هارون بآياتنا. We sent Moses and his brother. So again, similar to Abuna, we have Akhahu, his brother. The word Akh is being attached to this pronoun here. But in this case, it's in the mansub case. It's an object. We sent Moses and his brother. So in this case, instead of Akhuhu, it's going to be Akhahu. We sent Moses and his brother Harun with our verses. Inna laka la ajran ghayra mamnunin. Indeed, for you is reward that does not break or does not end. Inna laka la ajran ghayra mamnun. Okay, and again, what we're seeing here is that ghayr here is being used as the beginning of the possession construction. So ghayra mamnun, but mamnun here is indefinite, so it has to match ajr in terms of number and gender, and it does. They're both singular, they're both masculine. And notice that ghayr can change its case endings too. So here it has to match, it has to be a mansub case because ajr is in the mansub case and it has to match that. So inna laka la ajran ghayra mamnun. Indeed, for you is reward that is unending, and so this matches appropriately. Okay, so we covered a lot of different rules. So here are some more exercises that you can practice on your own. So go ahead and pause the video and go through these different examples. Make sure you can translate them and you understand what the grammatical rules are.